I'm delighted to have Dennis Pethers here from London, England, and he's going to be talking to us about More to Life, material that has been produced by Lifeway. It is more of an evangelistic strategy that we're going to be sharing. Dennis is visiting us from London, England, and we're delighted to have you here today, Dennis.
Oh, thank you.
What I'd like to do is just start out by you helping to tell your story, if you'd mind doing that.
Yeah, sure. I come from England, as you said, and where I come from, most people don't do church at all. I didn't. I was brought up in a home that never went to church. I was an atheist. I'd read books on evolution and that kind of thing. And I came to faith because my friend at work came in one day and brought me in a book. It was called Mere Christianity. He just said, read it. And I looked at it and I thought, it's religious. I don't really want to do that. But I read it eventually for a number of reasons, not least because he was my boss. And as I read it, I used to read it sitting on a train on the way from where I lived into London every day. I used to turn the front cover over so no one could see I was reading a religious book, and used to sort of hide it to my face so no one could see it. And I read about God, first of all, and I came to the conclusion, Ross, that you have to understand, I'd never been inside a church in my life, ever. I'd never read the Bible, anything like that. But I came to the conclusion that actually it takes less faith to believe in God than to believe there isn't a God, if that makes sense. Because both are really hard when you've never had any Christian framework in your life at all. But believing in God was hard, but believing we were just a mistake, just a big kind of cosmic fluke really, was even harder. So I decided, okay, I believe in God. And then I read about Jesus and was just overwhelmed by the fact that he was prepared to do what he did. I'd never read about it, I knew nothing about it, and suddenly I was confronted with this reality that God didn't just exist, but he had become a person and done the most amazing thing, that he had, the king of everything, was crucified on a cross for me. And it just blew my whole world apart, or put it together is probably a better way of putting it. And so my story from then on is that what I've ever since then, all I've wanted to do, and that was a number of years ago now, is just travel wherever God will take me to encourage, to share that message, but also to encourage Christian people that we have got the best thing imaginable in our hands, this great truth of God changing our lives. And I guess I want to spend every day I've got just encouraging Christians to share that message because it's so good.
I think what's excited me when I've talked to you before, and then we met together, in listening to your story, you said God had also set you apart. You're a Baptist evangelist. And I know that you've already spoken at some of our state conventions. And the Lord is taking you to different countries. Utilizing some of this material that you were using when Lifeway heard about it, and God kind of just put it all together to help out the believers and churches, and that's something I wanted to ask you about. How can a believer benefit from this study? I really like the fact that you're helping in this material a believer to learn how to share their story. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I think most Christian believers find it really hard to share their faith, and I think the way this can help, there's a number, but I'll just hit a couple of them. One is that it helps us to think about evangelism in a way which more Christians can do. We often think about evangelism as being that moment of leading somebody to Christ, and so an evangelistic event or moment is, here's a tract or whatever, you need to become a Christian. What's happening, Ross, is that the world out there is changing. And whereas that used to work nearly all the time, because most people in America, across Kentucky, knew there was a God and the Bible and everything else, that was their assumption, that was all true. Evangelism was, you know this is true, now respond to it. Increasingly, as time is passing, and we all know this, there's this crisis thing happening where people aren't in that place anymore. They don't all know that in the way that they used to know it. And so a lot of Christians think, how do I evangelize? If evangelism is, you need to respond to this gospel, and the people you're trying to reach don't even really know what the gospel is, that leaves a lot of Christians in the place thinking, I can't therefore do evangelism. So the approach that we take within More to Life is to look at evangelism like this. We say that evangelism is leaving the person I've met with a better understanding of God than they would have had if they'd not met me.
Yeah, many people don't realize that in 1 Corinthians 3rd chapter, that there is a sowing of the seed. There's a watering of the seed in the illustration of Apollos and Paul. And there's also a sharing of the gospel. The harvest, it's God's that brings in the harvest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have the privilege of planting that seed and then letting God do the rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of stuff that's out nowadays, though, does not push enough of the closure of sharing a gospel presentation. They'll talk about relational evangelism, but they never get to about building a bridge, which you have to do to the lost person. But I think also we need to emphasize, which your material does in sharing a gospel presentation.
Yeah, you see, the thing, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It seems to me that often we think there's a kind of what you do it this way or that way, and it seems that one way is let's be relational, let's not preach the gospel at people, let's be relational, let's just be their friends and da-da-da-da. Another one says, let's not do that, let's just keep preaching the gospel. Seems to me that Jesus actually blended those two things, and that's what we should be doing.
Right.
This is how I put it. If I'm a Christian and I get trained through this more to life approach to use my story, that's what we emphasize, to share faith and begin a conversation with somebody. If that person becomes my friend, I'm not going to not tell them the gospel.
Right.
But it's not because I'm supposed to, it's because actually I want to. If we became friends, if you weren't a Christian and I became your friend and I start telling you my story as it's encouraged to do in here, and you begin to discover more about Jesus, I'm not going to say, hey, that's enough, I've done my job. Because, it's helping you to get a better understanding of God because you've met me. But I want that understanding you get of God, not just for you to become a Christian, but actually to go beyond that, to go to the point with you where you actually want to tell other people about what you've discovered. And for me, that's what evangelism is. It's not just the moment. The moment is critical, the moment of conversion, and any initiative that waters that down, I think we're wasting our time. If we just make the gospel acceptable to anybody, then let's do something else. The gospel is the gospel. People need to repent of their sins, believe in Christ, and be baptized. It has to happen.
Right.
But I think if we focus just on that and don't recognize the huge journey now that many people need to go to get to that point where they want to know who this Jesus is, but also, Ross, the huge journey after that into discipleship, so that we're winning people who then recognize that Jesus came to this world to save people, to seek and save the lost. God so loved the world that he sent his only son. If that's what Jesus came to do, and we're following him, then that's what we're going to do, but not, and this is the key, not just expect everybody to respond straight away, but those disciples are engaging with lost people, becoming their friends, sharing faith, telling their story, getting to know these people. And as that thing rolls through, what we're doing is, I think, and this is what I think More to Life really can help with, it breaks down that hard soil of ignorance of the gospel or resistance to the gospel that is increasingly out there, because people see in our lives this is real, it's authentic. And then when we say, this Jesus, who I love and know, can change your life as well, this is the gospel, then we talk about the plan of salvation, but we're doing it in the context of a relationship, of a friendship with a person who now sees it and gets it, rather than trying to convince somebody who doesn't even... So the way I often put it in Britain, where I'm from, is that most people in Britain don't even know that they don't know the gospel. It's so if we confront them with it, they're not rejecting it. They don't even know what it is we're talking about.
Well, what you're doing is you're basically taking what you've written and bringing it to a contextual situation, but you're also trying to make a believer grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ to where they can become reproducible in sharing the story. Let's talk a little bit about the material.
Yeah, sure.
This is the kit, and it's got 3 DVDs in it. It's got a member book, and it's got a smaller book with one of the DVDs that has utilization for seekers. And so you're approaching what I like about this evangelism strategy. You've got a small group of believers you're trying to equip, and then you've got seekers. You're trying to reach them separately in another small group, if I understand.
That's absolutely right.
You have 6 sessions in the one, and you have a 4-story approach that you're looking at. If you could open that up and just explain some of the material in a better way than what I'm doing.
Do that. Yeah, you're doing it pretty well, I think.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, this is produced by Lifeway, so it has to be in a box, you understand?
Okay.
But hopefully it helps us to think out of the box. The bits that are in it, you mentioned, this is the small group study for Christians. And our feeling is that Christian people, You know, Ross, they don't need to be told again that they can't do evangelism.
Right.
You know, I hear people say that, and I'm an evangelist, and I hear a lot of evangelists keep saying to Christians, "You're no good at evangelism."
Yeah.
They don't need to hear that. What this does, the 6 sessions in this, encourage Christian believers to see that God has given them the best thing in the world they can use to share their faith, and that's their story of what He's doing in their lives.
So this is going to give them encouragement and confidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
To see.
Great.
In fact, I heard from a pastor in Virginia just recently told me that a lady he'd led this session through with, the lady said, "I've been a Christian 30 years and now I know I can do evangelism."
Wow.
And that excites me,
That's
because
great.
she recognized, she can't go and do a tract, become a Christian straight away. Because but what she can do with her friends, this is what she was saying, and her neighbours, talk about her Lord that she loves with those people and begin to see them becoming curious about who He is.
Now, what is this DVD for? You've got a lot of stories in that?
This one, yeah, this one is more to life, real people, real stories. This has on it 10 people from across North America who talk about the difference that faith in Christ is making in their lives. It only lasts 20 minutes. It's short on purpose. Each story is just a couple of minutes long. And what this is used for, once Christians have been trained in doing this, they use this DVD as a way to begin a conversation.
You're trying to hand it. What I like about this, I've previewed it all, is the fact you've got a guy who's coming from a teaching profession. Yeah. You've got another who's been incarcerated. Yeah. You're hitting everybody different type of life. Yeah.
And what this does, if I call it kind of a gospel tract, don't think that means that therefore I give this to you and you watch it and you become a Christian.
Right.
What actually happens is I give that to you. If you're my friend who's not a Christian, I give that to you. That opens up a conversation. So you watch that, you see these lives, and you may say to me, "Dennis, are you religious like those people, or do you go to church or whatever?" Then I can begin to tell you my story. I can then ask you, "What is your story? What do you believe, Ross?"
So you're going to follow up. You're going to hand this to me. I'm going to look at it, and you're going to say, "Listen, if you've got any questions, let me give you a call tomorrow. We can have coffee." And
exactly.
Okay, great.
So this starts a conversation.
Right. Okay, that's good. I like that.
It's not the end in itself. It could be. God can use that and has used that. People have watched that and become Christians straight away. I'm going to ask him why he did that, because we didn't make it for that. But
what's your third DVD
this
then?
One? Well, okay, to roll this forward, let's just say I've given you this DVD.
Okay.
You weren't a Christian. I've given it to you as a Christian. I've now told you the story of what God's doing in my life. You've told me what you believe. We've been talking about this maybe for weeks, months, maybe even years.
Okay.
And now you've reached the point where, because of that witness that I've been doing, you're saying to me, "Dennis, who is Jesus? I want to know who this Jesus is." I'm going to be excited now, because that's what I've wanted you to ask all this time.
That's super.
Discover more to life. This is another small group session that I can invite you to, probably in somebody's home. Do you know, we could even do it one-on-one at Starbucks with a laptop, and we could look at, there's a little journal in here.
That'd be great.
This looks at 4 encounters that people have with Jesus in the Gospel of John.
So this is for the unbeliever, the seeker.
You've said to me, "Who's Jesus?"
I see. Okay.
I can now invite you to this and do a small group with you. As I said, it could be just us two, it could be some other people as well, sitting in somebody's living room, or if it's at the church, it's in the lounge area, not in the sanctuary. Very informal, cup of coffee, some cookies. We say biscuits in England, but some cookies, whatever. And the way it's done is there's DVD clips people watch which tell these stories of these encounters people have with Jesus in the Gospel of John. And then they can talk about it and discuss it. And then another DVD clip says, "Okay, what does all that mean for us today?" And then they can talk about it again. And the idea of this is it helps a person who's become curious about Jesus to see how an encounter with Jesus can answer their deeper spiritual questions, and how they can discover God in a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Now, for leaders of a church, and we're talking about these two would be utilized for unbelievers or seekers.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, here we're talking about equipping for the believers to learn how to share their story.
Yeah.
It'll give them more of a sense of encouragement, confidence. Yeah. If I'm a teacher, if I'm a facilitator of this, you're the one that does the lessons, so it's not overwhelming me. I don't have to create anything. No. But we stop and pause during the videos, and then the dialogue continues in the small group, just utilizing your questions.
Yeah, and we really do encourage it to be done in a small group way. The way that we recommend a church does this is if you're a pastor of a church, or Minister of Education or whatever, and you're going to run this. What I really encourage is don't just make it a you'll come kind of thing. Actually select some people from the church that you really believe are going to be ones that are
good future teachers, facilitators.
And have a heart for faith sharing and evangelism.
Okay.
And go through this with them. Also go through this with them as well. Go through the whole thing with them so they get it. I know this is for unbelievers, but if they've gone through it, they understand what the contents of this is.
Okay.
And once they've done that, Ross, what I then suggest is, so let's say you were the pastor, you've trained 5 or 6 people in this. Then say to them, begin to do it, but also find a few other people from the church that you could invite to your home, and you lead them through it. So rather than the whole thing being led at the campus, try to make it happen out there, because the groups that do this and begin to share their faith eventually are going to be the groups that lead this.
Yeah, that's right.
And if I'm inviting you as a not Christian to come along to a little gathering to discuss some things about Jesus so you can find out who he is, coming to a small group, probably in somebody's home where you're going to do that, is probably going to be a lot easier for you than coming along to a church thing straight away. We've also produced a little Gospel of John, which is called "It's More to Life" Gospel of John, which can be used. See, when you get to this one, if you come to this as a not Christian, we offer 3 ways you can respond at the end of this. One is you may decide not to become a Christian, and if you do that, I'm not going to stop being your friend.
Right.
You might decide you want to find out some more. And if you do, that's where this Gospel of John comes in. Because I could say to you, okay, Ross, let's go and, let's have a coffee every week or whatever, and we'll just read a chapter of this Gospel and ask me any questions. And there's a study at the end of that as well we've produced, which we could walk through together. But if you become a Christian, and this is really the heart of what all these materials are about, really. If you become a Christian, then 3 people get really happy. The first is God, because I have to say my whole heart for this is bringing a smile to the face of God. Heaven rejoices every time a sinner repents, and that's what this is all about. The second person that gets happy is you. Your life has now been transformed. You love Jesus. I love that. You love Jesus. That's what this whole thing is all about now for you. But the third person that gets transformed is me. See, when I went on this, if you go with my scenario of how it works, as a reluctant faith-sharing Christian, I never believed that God would ever use me. And suddenly, you and I are sitting next to each other, and you've said to me, Dennis, I want to become a Christian. As you pray the prayer and ask Jesus into your life, he's going to touch your life. He's going to touch my life as well. And what we're trying to do with this, encourage and help churches to do, is to see how this can create a new culture of faith sharing, where more and more Christians share their faith, reach people. And now, once you've become a Christian through this process, I'm now going to help you to try to reach more people.
It's a journey you're going on with other people.
All the way.
That's right.
And it's about helping people who are close to God, to help people who are far from God but close to
Dennis, I pastored for 20 years, and most of our pastors are overwhelmed. Kentucky has a lot of small churches, so they're doing everything. And I can see the pastors saying, there's just one more thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
But pastors, I want to tell you that the one thing of this evangelistic strategy is you don't have to do it all. Any believer can do this after they're equipped. And the exciting thing is that if you're willing to be the gatekeeper, enlist your people, you train the first group, and you're multiplying the ministry of sharing your faith with other people. And I like that, because it's like God's going to anoint that and bless that, and you're going to reach more and more people, not only in your community, but also in the state, North America, and even overseas. So I would like for you to go ahead and consider this, pray about this. And if you have any questions, the number is on the screen, www.kybaptist.org. Dennis, I want to thank you. It's a pleasure having you here today.
Ross. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I just want to continue to pray for you. And I thank Lifeway for producing this material. And we're just going to see God do some wonderful things throughout this ministry. God bless you. Have a great day.
Thank you.